And it's because of the sin, not God. Everyone say something? But it's not true. But if God did, and we know He didn't, but what if God did make a mistake by giving us free will and give us dominion over the earth? Not saying He didn't, but what if He did? The world we live in is because of us. It's not because of God. So you might be saying, so are you saying that because of the bad things in the earth is because of us? Yes. But even the good things are because of us. Why? We can see the good and going to feed the hungry in Africa, or sending missionaries to preach the gospel. Sometimes God is being blamed for something He didn't do. He's being fully guilty and falsely excused. So what, number 3? So we talked about why did you create pain? Why did you create suffering? Now, why did you suffer? Matthew 16, verse 21. If you've got it, to read it loud for me. Matthew 16, 21. Chapter 16, verse 21. You got it, read it. From the time forth began Jesus to show unto His disciples how that He must go into Jerusalem and suffer many things of the elders and chief priests and scribes, and be killed and be raised again the third day. When the Creator becomes the creation, He's not exempt. He's not exempt Himself from being suffering. In other words, the Creator of the universe became a human being. He wasn't Superman. He can be hurt. He's touched by our pain. Do you know the shortest verse in the Bible? John 11:15. Jesus wept. He's touched by our sorrows. He's touched by our pain. He feels pain. He knows how it is to be 10 years old. He knows how it is to be 21 years old. He knows how it is to lose a friend. And He knows how it is to lose a father. If you didn't know, Joseph died when he was a teenager. God could have chose any man on the earth to be his father. But He chose Joseph. And while he was a teenager, he died. So that we are the only religion in the world that can truly say that our God knows how we feel. Think of that. Out of all the religions in the world, we are the only religion that our Lord knows how we feel. because he felt it. He felt the whips of the scourge. He felt the nails in his hands. He felt the beatings. Even when he was on the cross, he took the weight of the sin of the world upon his shoulders. He felt it. He felt the abandonment. He knows what you've been through. You know, politicians today, you listen to them and they got this theological truth of identification. You know, like they know what I've been there. And you know, you can think of an illustration. Here's a politician. He's coming off his jet and he's getting into the limo and he changes and he gets into the farmer's suit and he comes out to the farmers up to the tractor and he says, I know how it's going. My father's father was a great farmer. And so he gets this bill and goes back into the car, the limo, changes, gets his white hat on and a coat, and goes to the factory and says, I know what you're going through. My grandmother's father, dad, brother used to be in the factory system. But he never worked the factory system in his life. He never tilled the ground in his life. He gets back in the car and goes back into the limo and he gets in there and he gets on the nice suit and goes to the bankers and says, I know what you're feeling. My grandma's father, brother, sister, everybody else in the family used to be bankers. I can relate. You know what? He's a liar. He's a liar. Jesus knows. Jesus knows what you've been through. Jesus felt what you've been through. Jesus was human. Like I said, he was human. He felt every whip of the scourge. He felt every nail. You know what? And he suffered. And he died. So there's nothing that you're going through that Jesus hadn't gone through for you. He was hungry. He knows pain. When he was thirsty, he knows sorrow. He knows because he's been there. He didn't exempt himself from it. Let me show you something. Sometimes we blame God all the time when it's not even his fault. Go to John 11:21, verse 32. Lord, Martha said to Jesus, if you had been there, my brother would not have died. And then 32, when Mary reached the place where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and said, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would have not died. Isn't it interesting that they used the exact words if they had been talking about it for about 4 days? If he would have been here. If he would have been here. How many times, I wonder how many times we've said, Lord, if you would have been here. Lord, this wouldn't happen. I'm going to give you 2 answers today that will answer every question you want to ask God to answer why. Sometimes God, again, is getting blamed for stuff he didn't do. And the sometimes is, I didn't do it. Did you hear me? Sometimes, the sometimes that you're going through and stuff is, I didn't do it.
Amen.
Then if he did it, the answer is, it's because I love you. If he allowed the situation to happen, it's because he loves you. Where are you turning to things? How are you looking at things? Why are you turning, you can hear yourself saying, why are you turning the things the devil did for evil for my good? Because I love you. Why are you causing all these things to work together for my good? Because I love you.
Amen.
Because I love you. I was reading a story the other day, and it may tie into what I'm saying, but I want you to know that you're not alone. I don't care what adversity you may be going through, but you need to understand is that he loves you this morning. It's because he loved you to allow you to go through some things that you went through. Now, he didn't bring the suffering, but sometimes he'll bring the pain to make you remind yourself, stop, or you're going to hurt yourself even more. But this story, I wanted to read to you, and it's about a pastor and a little boy. It said, every Sunday afternoon, after the morning service at the church, the pastor and his 11-year-old son would go out into their town and hand out gospel tracts. This particular Sunday afternoon, as it came time for the pastor and his son to go to the streets where their tracts, it was very cold outside, as well as pouring down rain. Kind of feels like that this morning, huh? The boy bundled up his warmest and driest clothes and said, "Okay, Daddy, I'm ready." His pastor dad asked, "Ready for what?" Dad responds, "Son, it's very cold outside and it's pouring down rain." The boy gives his dad a surprised look, asking, "But Dad, aren't people still going to hell even though it's raining?" Dad answers, "Son, I'm not going out in this weather." Despondently, the boy asks, "Dad, can I go, please? Can I go?" His father hesitated for a moment and then said, "Son, you can go. Here's the tracks, but be careful." "Thanks, Dad." And with that, he was off and out into the rain. Now this 11-year-old boy walked the streets of the town, going door to door and handing everybody he met in the street a gospel tract. After 2 hours of walking in the rain, he was soaking, his bone chilled, wet, and down to his very last tract. So he stopped on the corner and looked for someone to hand a tract to, but the streets were totally deserted. And then he turned toward the first home he saw and started up the sidewalk to the front door and rang the doorbell. He rang the bell, but nobody answered. He rang it again and again, but still no one answered. He waited, but still no answer. Finally, this 11-year-old trooper turned to leave, but something stopped him. Again, he turned to the door and rang the bell and knocked loudly on the door with his fist. He waited, something holding him there on the front porch. He rang again, and the time the door slowly opened, standing in the doorway was a very sad-looking elderly lady. She softly asked, "What can I do for you, son?" With radiant eyes and a smile that lit up the whole world, this little boy said, "Ma'am, I'm sorry if I've disturbed you, but I just want to tell you that Jesus really does love you. I came to give you my very last gospel tract, which will tell you all about Jesus and his great love. With that, he handed her his last tract, and he turned and left. She called to him as he departed, "Thank you, son, and God bless you." For the following Sunday morning in church, the pastor dad was in the pulpit. And as the service began, he asked, "Does anybody have a testimony of what to say about anything?" And slowly in the back row of the church, an elderly lady stood there on her feet. And as she began to speak, a look of glorious radiance came from her face. None of you in this church know me. I've never been here before. You see, before last Sunday, I was not a Christian. My husband has passed on some time ago, leaving me totally alone in this world. Last Sunday, being a particularly cold and rainy day, it was even more so in my heart as I came to end the line where I no longer had any hope or will to live. So I took a rope and a chair and ascended the stairway into the attic of my home. I fastened the rope securely to a rather in the roof, and then stood on the chair and fastened the other end of the rope around my neck. Standing on that chair, so lonely and broken-hearted, I was about to leap off when suddenly the loud ringing of my doorbell downstairs startled me. I thought, I'll wait a minute, and whoever it is will go away. I waited and waited, but the ringing of the doorbell seemed to get louder and more insistent, and then the person ringing also started knocking loudly. I thought to myself again, who on earth could this be? Nobody ever rings my bell or comes to see me. I loosened the rope from my neck and started for the front door. All the while, the bell rang louder and louder. And when I opened the door and looked, I could hardly believe my eyes. There on my front porch was this most radiant and angelic little boy I had ever seen in my life. His smile. Oh, I could never describe it to you. And the words that came from his mouth caused my heart that had long been dead to leap to life as he exclaimed with cherub-like voice, "Ma'am, I just came to tell you that Jesus really does love you." Then he gave me the gospel tract that I now hold in my hand. As the little angel disappeared back out into the cold and rain, I closed my door and read slowly every word of this gospel tract. Then I went up to my attic to get my rope and chair. I wouldn't be needing them anymore. You see, I am now a happy child of the King. And since the address of your church was on the back of this gospel tract, I have come here to personally say, thank you to God's little angel who came just in the nick of time, and by so doing spared my soul from an eternity in hell. There were no dry eyes in the church as shouts of praise and honor to the King resounded off the very rafters of the building. Pastor Dad descended from the pulpit to the front pew where the little angel was seated. He took him in his arms and sobbed uncontrollably. He knows. He knows what you're going through. He knows the pain. He's been there. And sometimes we forget that God is way up here and that He don't understand. He don't understand the battles that we face. But I'm here to tell you, He knows. And I'm here to tell you,